subject is so varied that we had to put a team to work on this. And we'll all be sent in pieces of this that we call the Columbian Exchange. As you can see, I'm here. And John Franzen, John, where are you? Anyway, and he will be dealing with the aspects of, well, he will tell you aspects of diseases and things to do with the bed world and many other things, Sonny, we all know. And then we have Robert Taylor. And I have to say we're really pleased that he could come and agreed to come. And I call him an economic guru, okay? He specializes in ambushing conglomerate, monopolies, and the like. And believe me, you don't want to argue with this man if you're in the sea of economics. He will trounce you. And plus being one of the most outstanding mathematicians that I know of. So he will be joining us sometimes on the matters of economics that we will be covering later. Okay, so what is this whole thing about? Okay, you say well, Columbian Exchange, Columbian, of course, even the name is wrong. It's supposed to be Colon, not Colombian. Yeah. So anyway, but what is it about? Well, very simply, just about all of what we do today, trade, culture, exchange, ideology, beliefs, plain old living has a lot to do with it. The discovery and subsequent underlying successful settlement, okay, of the American continent by Europeans. That is the subject, okay? All right, so what do you mean by that? Because both on the Atlantic side and on the Pacific side, people have been coming or claiming to have arrived at this continent, all right? And we can go back a long time, but I chose the Phoenicians, superb traders and also navigators of the old time. The Greeks, for example, claimed that they had reached the Hesperides, which translates the Fortunate Islands. Well, there's the Canary Islands. That automatically tells me that the Phoenicians, and the Greeks too, did go into the big blue sea out there, the Atlantic, okay? And they were very good at coastal, mostly coastal navigation. But a little bit, every now and then, they would go farther out, and some came back, and most didn't, okay? So, the Phoenicians, we know, if we can believe Herodotus, and when you read Herodotus, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. The man loved to fictionalize, okay, as we all know. He claimed that this Phoenician Haino went all around Africa and came back. Also implied is that they went this way too, all right? Then we come with the Celts, Welsh, Irish, and they have what they call a coracle. It's a very simple vessel, Okay, here is a little one, and then there is the legend of Saint Borondon, who's said to have gone, west and reached a land and came back. And the legend of Saint Borondon, that Saint Borondon had reached the America, maybe no, but we do know that they would make ocean-going coracles. And even recently, a few years back, there was a crazy Irishman that built that and did it. He went and came back, survived, to everybody's surprise. Okay. And yes, our beloved Vikings, with their long ships. And you say, well, long ships, you see, they're different, okay? They flex with the waves, so they can do blue water. They can do it. And they went all over the place. Here's, I think, a romantic view. You see where they settled in the Baffin Island, they settled in Greenland and in Vinland, okay? They were all over. They really, for a while, from the 800 to about the 1,000, they were all over the place, okay? And many voyages, many people. Now we begin to get a little strict because we do have documentation of where they went, the sagas, many sagas. And these are stories of where they were, what they did. And also, we have something called the runes. They had an alphabet, and they could read and write on rocks as well as on parchment and paper that was by then available. So we can corroborate fairly precisely where they were and what happened to them, what things happened to them. You see? This is sort of summarizing. So they settled Vinland. They had settlements in Greenland. It doesn't show here, but they also had them in Baffin Island, okay? And Iceland, of course, yes, they did touch in Dublin. York, in the Yorkshire, this is really the core of Vikings in the UK, but also up in Scotland and the Faroe Islands and so. These people were all over the place. But it gives you a misconception if you just think of going across the Atlantic. Actually, their main business was trading all over. Here's the Volga. They were sort of opportunist traders. If they happened to have a place and they saw that it was weak, they would take over the place. If it was strong, they would trade. So it was that kind of thing. Sometimes they make mistakes. This was a big mistake. They went up to the Guadalquivir River and ran across the best cavalry that Europe had at the time, which was the Moorish Berber cavalry, and that didn't go well at all. They did not come back, okay? So no settlement there, all right? Went to Sicily, and they had for a while a little kingdom there that was taken over, guess what? By the Aragonians from here, okay? All right. The problem with this is that it was settled during the medieval warm period. And all of a sudden, the little ice age set in, and they were forced to leave here. Actually, they died. They also had to give up Greenland. It was too cold, okay? And they had an ability to pick up fights with what they call the Skraelings. That's the natives. And they were not used to the, what do we call it? Native American way of fighting. Okay. The other side now, that we're going to go to the Pacific. This guy, Gavin Menzies, I'm paraphrasing Cervantes, a person that I do not wish to meet, okay, was heavy in demonstrating that the Chinese had come to the Americas. And he uses this guy, Admiral Sheng Yi, of the very beginning of the Ming Dynasty. Well, he was given by his emperor, go around and let everybody know who we are and set up for potential trading and so forth. And he did that. He went all over the place. And this is a summary. And if you look around, indeed he had 3 or 4 trips that he was commissioned. had very good ships, huge ships, some having 8, 10 masts. You can imagine the size of it. And it was a whole fleet, a whole army was going over there. They would go any place. Here we are. Can we trade? Well, yeah, we can trade, or else, that kind of thing. But the next emperor decided that China had no business doing exploration or navy and so on, and that thing died. Okay. Did they get to the Americas? Yeah, I think so personally. They did. After all, winds do carry fishermen to odd places, and some anchors, stone anchor, Chinese models, were found off the coast of San Salvador. So from that, we can surmise that maybe unwillingly they did get here. Okay. This is serious. This is a very serious one, which is often overlooked, is the Polynesians. What you're seeing here is a Polynesian catamaran. Wonderful idea. You have not one hull, you have two hulls joined. That gives you a stability and great ability to deal with the heavy waves and so forth. Second, these people were incredibly good navigators, using all kinds of, by the stars, the swells, the winds, the currents, and the feel of the water. Okay. And you say, well, that's crazy. Well, don't argue with them, because, you see, they produced this now in the 1700s. This is a map made by one of the Polynesian navigators of the position of the islands that they had visited. When they started, originally they came from Taiwan. What is Taiwan today? Did you all know that? From Taiwan. And at that time, the whole Pacific Ocean was empty. There was nobody there. Wow, we're going to move down. So they went down by 5000 BC. These are good solid dates, okay? We know that by 1000 BC, they have reached the Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, and then the Marquesas, they went to Hawaii, now we're in 1120, down to New Zealand. And you see the value of that ship. They travel all over, the biggest ocean. And we know that it can get pretty fierce. And they did this, Eastern Island Pitcairn. From here to the coast of Peru is an easy ride. Okay? Here's a depiction of 1781. They would use masks and so on, protect their faces, you know. And this is a reconstruction. There's a group in Hawaii that of course, I understand. They want to see whether it can be done, whether they did it as close to the original as we know, and have been just traveling all over the Pacific demonstrating, yeah, they could do this, yeah, they could do that. And you say, well, is that all? No, you see. Not only do you have to know how to navigate, the ship is really limited in size. So that means limited in size is how much water can you carry, how much food can you carry. That is doesn't depend on the ship. The size, yes, but it's you. How many people can you take? How far can you go? They had something that did not exist in the Atlantic, coconut, okay? Coconut. And then they had taro, okay? And then they had yams, not sweet potato, yams. And this allowed them to have food and water a lot longer. This was not available in the Atlantic. Okay. They did reach Peru, and the Rich Peru we know because thanks to the beautiful science of molecular biology, they did an analysis of the original sweet potatoes in Peru, in the coastal Peru, and that in the Marquesas, and they matched. So they got to trading with the coastal Peruvian. The word kumara that they use for sweet potato matches too. So we know that this is serious. These people were here. This whole thing of the Columbian exchange has spawned innumerable books on different subjects and so on. I gave you a short bibliography there of books that in different aspects of the Columbian exchange. And then my good friend John decided to put down what things do we think about or should think about when we are talking about the Columbian exchange. Quickly he wrote down all of this: the arrival of Homo sapiens, the plants, okay, the political Amerindian religions, diseases, flora and fauna. And on the other side, what was going on in Europe? What was the Europe? You see, in all of these books, they seem to spend an inordinate amount of time describing the Amerindians and so on, and they forget the Europeans. What kind of people were these? Well, we're going to deal with that, and there'll be some surprises, I guarantee you. Okay, so out of this whole mass of data and thought, years ago, Crosby, and this has become pretty much a textbook, kind of tried to organize it all and had this book, part one, antecedent contrast between the old world and the new world before 1492. Then there was conquest and pestilence. These are the chapters going there. Syphilis and its new world origin, other diseases, plants and animals. Okay. Eurasian plants in the new world plants in the old world. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. And then the fact that it's still going on. So we're not free from these exchanges. If anything, they have increased with time. We will see. Okay. I gave you a handout, and we're not trying to cover all of this in 7 lectures, okay? This is more a plan for a whole year, unless you all throw me out or throw us out. Each one of us will be, turn today, will be intervening in their area of a specialty. So that okay, let's take section 1. That's the introduction. I already have given you some of it. Okay. What's the exchange? The exchange is this. We're going to emphasize, and I triple underline, food, agriculture, people, and their cultures, okay? Very, very important, and how they intermesh all of this. We're not too interested in the military aspects. We'll touch some of it, so, or the things that people belabor, the conquest of Peru, the conquest of Mexico, and so half of it is myth. So anyway, we're not going to deal with that. We're interested in things that do matter, food, okay? What you eat and you live with even today, okay? So from here to the old world, and you go beans, cocoa, maize, and so on all the way. And the only animal contribution Turkey. Turkey, okay? From the old world, bananas and sugar cane, yeah, some chicken, you know. So there was a dearth of animals in the New World. You had turkey and you had the guinea pigs down in with the Incas. That was it. There's no horses, no, can you imagine, no goats? For Christ's sake, humans without goats, that's impossible. Anyway, but diseases, the diseases. If you want to get into detail, there are several of these interactive displays and all in the web. And all you have to do is just type in Columbian Exchange and Interplay. One of these things will show up, and then you just punch what you want, pumpkins or rabbits or whatever, and they tell you all where they came, where they went, and all that kind of stuff. So the information is available. We're talking about this, the exchange. Sugar and rice coming this way, okay? Cassava, meaning cocoa, going the other way, okay? Well, sugar and rice here, maize, potatoes, tobacco, beans. Can you think of Northern Europe without potatoes? That would be a difficult thing to manage, okay? What about no maize in the world? No maize, no corn. You don't have any corn. All you have now is wheat, barley, oats, that kind of thing. Right. And this, a little input from Africa, malaria, yellow fever, North America, South America, and then a little, although this, we need to wait for John's intervention on this. There's a lot to be said for this. Syphilis going the other way. A lot of discussion there. Okay, let's begin with beverages. I thought and thought and thought, I said, what would be good? Something like beverages and stimulants. From the old world, we got coffee, tea, opium, cat, betel nuts, marijuana. From the new world, take that, cocoa, and mate, and Japon, coca, and tobacco. And that's just the very minimum. Let's take an imaginary trip. Okay? There is the concept of livability. Cities are some are more livable than others. And every year, the Economist Intelligence Unit Livability declared in 2018 Vienna to be the most livable city in the world. So we're going to go there. Let's take an imaginary trip. Okay? And we're going to go down here. This is the ring. The ring means where the old walls of the city were. And it's a must. If you're a tourist, you go there. But there is this little thing here that has to do with this. Because we're going to start talking about chocolate cake. Chocolate cake, all right? This is not Starbucks, okay? Let's make that clear. This is a cafe. Quite a difference in, and you see, I've been there. For me, it's the epitome of civilization. You sit down, no time living, don't have to worry about anything. Everything is great there, okay? But there is no Columbus. You can't have it. You can't have it. You can perhaps, we will see, can have coffee. No chocolate. So you're out of the cake. Or as Ingrid would say, is this correct? Sachertorte und Kaffee mit Schleich. Okay? That's what he says, okay? Coffee. Let's begin with coffee. You have in your bibliography this book. I highly recommend it if you want to get deep into coffee, and it is very deep, okay? This is the book to read. Very accurate, historically and scientifically correct. I learned a lot reading it that I didn't know. But then we're going to have goats. There's always a goat. And this is none other than Goya, Don Francisco de Goya y Lucientes, okay? Remember the naked Maha, the El Prado and so on? Let's not get into that. But he did paint this, which he called the aquelarre. Now you gotta read when you deal with an artist, what is behind this? Is anything behind it? Plenty. This can be the devil, or can be the opposite. And the witches perhaps represent religion, or not. Okay. But it's a goats. Goats do all kinds of weird things. I'm sure some of you have seen this picture. This is from Morocco. And the goats, when you push them, they'll do anything. I mean, they're going to get fed. And there they go. So, but then there is story of Kaldi, K-A-L-D-I. Myth is Kaldi. It was Abyssinia, now Ethiopia, in the mountains. Goat herd named Kaldi goes to sleep. His goats are going around, and all of a sudden he wakes up and finds his goats are dancing and jumping and doing all kinds of crazy things about him. He follows them, and they're eating berries, these red berries from it. So he eats them too, and he starts dancing too, you know. Well, that mythical or not, if it's not true, it's good fiction, okay? All right. So, but anyway, I like this story. And that is the first mention of coffee. All right. That's it. And you see it here? It is a beautiful thing. And you see the berries. Here are the bushes. You see the berries now, and your coffee. It's a native. Everybody agrees it's a native of Abyssinia, the Ethiopian mountains. The earliest substantiated evidence for coffee drinking or knowledge of the coffee, 15th century in the Sufi monasteries. The myth. Okay. By the 16th century, had reached the rest of the Middle East, South India, Persia, Turkey, the Muslim world. But also remember Venice. Venice was always trading there. Even after the Muslim took over, the Muslim will let you trade, but you will have to pay heavy for that. So that made coffee. You could get coffee in Venice, but you will be paying a lot of money for it. Okay. So, the word coffee entered the English language, so I read, 1582, okay, from the Dutch coffee, okay, but they borrowed from the Turkish kava. In World War II, kava, cup of kava, okay, that's where it comes from. And we're talking about Yemen, that's Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, that's the old Abyssinia. This is where we're talking. This is where the action took place. As a beverage was developed sometime around the 1400s. So it doesn't go that far back, coffee. After the Ottomans, Turks occupied in 1436, of course, they used the beautiful organization of that empire, and coffee quickly moved all over the Muslim world. Okay. I've already mentioned that the Republic of Venice was really the only reliable supplier of coffee for Europe. And when I say Europe at that time, that would be the Mediterranean. Okay, we'll deal with it. It was considered a luxury. And here we go. Coffee, there is no doubting, it's a Muslim drink. It was the process of grinding, process of using water, extracting it, all of that was worked out by our friends, the Sufis. And the Sufis, monks quickly adopted the drink as an invigorated them and helped them greatly to keep awake. And the dancing going on. I've never seen this, but it must be something. The Sufis passed on coffee seeds and still in various parts of the Muslim world, to India, and there to Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and by the Dutch. Okay. Well, we go back to this place. Okay. All right. So now we got coffee. Okay. But you see, coffee drinking in Northern Europe relatively recent. It goes back to 1683, which was the second Ottoman siege of Vienna that collapsed through the intervention of this guy, John Sobieski, and the Polish cavalry. They lifted the siege, and the attack was so sudden, so unexpected, that the Turkish left everything there, including some sacks of some bean-like things, some grains, that they proceeded to burn. Then this guy said, no, don't do that, don't do that, this guy. Jerzy Franciszek Kulczynski. He said, I know what to do. He had been in Turkey, he knew about it, so he made some coffee, passed it around, and boy, everybody loved the thing. And we have coffee houses all over Europe. The coffee place, the cafe, is called the Blue Bottle. It still exists, okay? That's kind of, you can go to a place where they were making coffee in the late 1600s. That's cool. Okay. A street in Vienna is named after him, after Franciszek. In the corner of two streets, there's a statue of him commemorating. So if you're in Vienna and you see that, who's that guy? He's very important. He really is important. He triggered coffee houses all over the place in Northern Europe. Okay. So when you read our Revolutionary War, we will have no tea, remember? So we drink coffee. Wrong. There was no coffee here. I don't know what they drank. Maybe sassafras or something, but not coffee. That was not here. Okay. Oops. Okay. You can surmise that the number of cafes meant that they needed to have coffee, and coffee became a very important commodity. Okay. So the Caribbean and South American colonies planted coffee in the early 1700s. The Dutch gave the seedlings to the French. The Dutch planted in Suriname, okay? The Portuguese sent a naval officer. This is interesting. You see, this one of the interesting things. Brazil at one time, the only thing they exported, it was like cotton in the South, was coffee. I mean, all right? Well, they sent a naval officer, probably very good looking. I tried to find out a picture of him, but I didn't. But I assumed that he was a very nice looking guy who had something with the governor's wife. And the governor's wife, the legend says, I'm going back to Brazil. Oh, but take these things with you. It was prohibited. So that is the birth of the Brazilian coffee plantations and all of that. It came from an illicit love affair. From South American liquor, coffee spread to Central America, Mexico, in the early 1800s. So it's not that old, okay? Did you know that? I didn't. In science, we classified plants, what's called the binomial. It has two names. The first one is this one, the genus. That's Coffea. And the second one is the species, a particular one, okay? And that is over here, Arabica. Oh, now they tell you, he has 100% Arabica coffee and so forth, or he has some other called Robusta, all right? Let's get into that. But the fact is, there are many, many species, okay? It's also a fact that 90-some% of them are from Africa, different parts of Africa, you know, like high in the mountains in Ethiopia, but then there is the tropical, warm, you know, humid areas, and then over here has other species of coffee. And this is very exciting. You tell a plant breeder that, and he says, wow, I love this, but no matter what happens, I can start mixing these things around and breeding, and I come up with an answer to whatever problem or desire I have, okay? These are the big ones. We have Arabica from South Sudan and Ethiopia, Robusta from West Africa. There's a difference when you look at how the berries are. They say these are strong alone, okay? And they don't mature uniformly. They one by one, so they have to be hand-picked, okay? This other one does mature in bunches, and in fact, you will see that next in the flowers. And then they mature at the same time, makes it ideal for just stripping or even mechanizing the harvest. Okay, a little close up. You see the little bunches maturing, and there's a little bunch of flowers here, and you see here's a little clearer, and this is Robusta, and this is Arabica. You see, there's no uniformity. So when they tell you mountain coffee, Arabica, and so on, it's a lot of work. You got to go pick that, and there is no substitute for that. Okay. In the world, R is Robusta, A is Arabica, and M is a mix. And you see, Robusta is all in the tropical, very tropical areas of the world. And when you see Arabica, it's usually places that they have mountains and they have cooler weather, and that is where Arabica and the others are a mixture. Places like Brazil has both, and quickly now, yeah.
Do coffee beans not continue to ripen once they're picked?
Once they pick, no, it's hit. So we'll go a little bit through that next. I mean, a little later, okay? It loves Arabica, loves cooler, that is higher in the mountains, okay? This is sea level to hot, humid tropic. That's Robusta, okay? And it's called Robusta. What's it? Okay. Before I'm getting ahead of myself. If you look closely at the beans, Arabica, they're elongated. And the Robusta, more roundish, smaller, okay? They have this chlorogenic acid and caffeine. Both of them are fantastic because, like the Sufis found out, you take several cups of this coffee and you're really gonna fly, you know? Okay. and humans. Okay. Then also more differences. There's more sugar, and this is sucrose now. That's weird. It's sucrose in the Arabica than in Robusta. There is half the amount of caffeine in Arabica than there is in Robusta. Okay. So this is why they call it Robusta. You take that, but it's lower quality because it doesn't have the aromatic other compositions that Arabica has. Okay, okay, let's go. This is summary. Just comparing elongated shape, round shape. Essential oils, very high. Then you have sugar here, less sugar here, caffeine. Okay. It went all over the place quickly. It spread around all over the place. Why? Because it made money. You could sell coffee. And if you had the right conditions, you had a guaranteed a market. Let's stop here, okay? Take about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll resume, okay?
Okay. Oh, you weren't looking at your guy.
Well, anyway, I didn't think about it. If you'd been where Joan is or behind, Joan?
There's a lot of an echo. I mean, it can if we went with a different microphone, but you don't want to wear the headset microphone would eliminate that. If you want, most people don't want to wear it because it's got to go over it would go over your hearing aids.
It becomes an impediment. Anyway. You all hearing okay? Okay.
There's an echo. There is.
Okay.
Doing good?
Yeah. Maybe we'll get through.
Need some water?
No.
I think I've got a bottle of water in the bag.
I got some there too. Let's see.
Probably got some rabbit caught.
The chickens. I don't know what I did with my thing. Oh, Lord. Oh, here it is. Okay.
all the information.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Um, this is to show different forms of plantations or production sites. I should be more accurate because, and you see the picking one by one. And then you see this, another type of coffee, which will be the Robusta. It lends itself to plantation, okay? Because, you know, they all mature about the same time, so it's easy, you know? And then also, it can take the warm areas of the world, okay? Hot, tropical. And occasionally you see this here in papayas, and I don't know what that tree is, but it's being used as shading. And sometimes Arabica, that's all it requires, just a little shading. It is an under canopy bush, okay? So some today you see them that way. Here this guy is not being very nice. I mean, he's just tripping. This is Robusta. It's okay. In the world today, what they call the coffee belt, okay? You have this here, there, and in Indonesia, Vietnam, these are all Robusta. They grow tropical, let's call it tropical coffee, okay? And the areas like this, okay? Mixtures of Robusta and Arabica. They have both. Brazil has both. You got mountains and you also have, so they have that, okay? And then of course, Arabica, and you see how it follows the mountains? And over here, it's in the mountains, okay? And I'm going to take you to paradise. Yeah, I bet you don't believe in paradise. I've been there, thanks to my wife. And one of my wife's friends, her father owns this place and maintains it as a sort of a museum, the way an hacienda was, a coffee hacienda was, okay? And it's, believe me, they do serve coffee there too, okay? Here, how's that? You can get used to that place. But you haven't seen anything yet. How about this? It's good to be king. And you see how they put him? Look at this one. And that one, I think that goes beyond the regular, you know, family type. This guy's got some loot. He's overlooking the town of Medellin. But you see, it's again in the mountains, and it's arranged in the slope. There is such a thing we talk as air drainage. It goes through. So you're getting movement of air, and that seems to be what Arabica, this is all Arabica coffee. Okay. According, business now. This is Colombian Exchange. So we got to show something as a result of this, okay? Well, the Arabica coffee today makes 61%, okay? It gets a higher price. It would be more if it wasn't susceptible to diseases. You see, the very caffeine and the chlorogenic acids are compounds produced by the plant to defend itself against fungi, okay? So the more you have, this is Robusta, I mean, don't come, I'll punch you. You know, so it's loaded with, so that is an explanation. There are many varieties. Remember the number of species in Africa? Well, you start mixing those things, and you get a lot of varieties. You know. Okay. Broad gene pool all allows for selection. There are many types of coffee plants, and this can be in response to diseases, or it can be your idea of flavor. Okay. You can. I don't want to use the word engineering. You can use molecular biology and very quickly achieve what you want. Okay? Because this guy, Camellia vastatrix, is a fungus. It's a rust fungus. And it's a tough one. Not only it has two types, watch this, Mother Nature. It has two types of reproduction, asexual and sexual. But Rob, what are you talking about? When you have sexual reproduction, you get diversity, the mother, the father. When you have asexual, you have a spore type, and that's it. So this guy comes loaded. It's ready for anything. So it attacks the leaves surface, drills down through the leaf, and on the underside, you get rust. And you start with this, and you wind up with that. Not a pretty scene. It was first, here come the humans again. I told you there's a human thing here. It was first seen and described accurately in 1861. Okay? Well, there's no echo. We don't worry about that. In 1867, showed up in Sri Lanka, that is in Ceylon. Okay? There it is. Napoleonic Wars and all of that. Okay? The British did what they always do. The British, after took over a limited number of coffee plantations in Ceylon from the Dutch, and the Dutch went to Indonesia. Then they went wacko, and they started planting coffee all over the place that Arabica could be planted in Ceylon. So it comes the winds, and the spores are extremely resistant, and they can travel thousands of miles in the air without losing viability. When the coffee rust fungus reached Ceylon, there were 400,000 acres, if you can envision there, the mountains and all that, 400,000 acres. So Amelia comes. He said, oh, wonderful. So it lands. Okay? See, quite resistant desiccations. So acres. So it started moving through all the acres that had been planted. This is a monoculture, an ideal place for a plague, a pest, and this is what it became. Okay? In 1870, there were 5 million pounds of coffee being produced. In less than 20 years, were destroyed, and production was essentially wiped out. So if you go today to Sri Lanka, I haven't looked at the web. They probably got Starbucks over there if you can import it, but you're not likely to find coffee growing over there. Okay, it's resilient. Okay. This is Ceylon today, but these are tea plantations, not coffee. Okay. What to do about the rust? Hey, if this thing shows up, you can kiss coffee goodbye. That was literally the way it was. Now, you have all this gene pool to play with, and when you play with it, as the molecular biologists do, they quickly find some that have some resistance, some level of resistance. This can be enhanced by interbreeding. Okay? But then the downside is It's Sisyphus. Because if you throw something at the fungus will adapt to it. Remember, sexual and asexual is prepared for that. So that means you have to spend money maintaining a breeding establishment. And you got to pay salaries and you got to pay all kinds of things. Didn't worry in America. We didn't worry about that. That thing is not here. That's some kind of African thing, and it goes over in Asia. Who cares about them? Okay? Brazil was happily growing and selling coffee. Indonesia then was the first area where resistance to the rust was developed. They had some coffee trees that were resistant to it based on the fact that Robusta was somewhat more resistant, tolerant of the rust than Arabica. Okay. In the late 70s, this is my life now. I remember 1970, everyone was worried in Brazil. This thing is coming. If it comes over here, oh my, it's going to destroy us. Well, in Brazil, Sonny will tell you more about that. He lived there. They never learn to do things in a small way. They never do, you know. This was then the #1 export, any export in Brazil. So that was a state matter. So in the late 1970s, 1980s, various countries, principally Brazil, started breeding. The intensity of the breeding program was huge. I'll show you. You see? The Portuguese were still in Angola. It's about the time they had just left, okay? But while they were there, they had an experiment station that was intensely breeding for resistance to the rust. And they had one man there who was very successful. Well, Angola was going to go their way, okay? So the Brazilian Navy went over to Angola, took the whole thing. I mean, everything, pots, people, breeders, and moved them over to Brazil, okay? And they told the breeders, you are not to breed coffee. We have people, you teach them how to breed coffee, and we're going to have plenty of experiment stations doing all of this and competing with each other to see who can come up with the best resistant variety. They did it, okay? Normally here, you know, an experiment station that has 600-700 acres, it's about, would you say? It's about okay. That's only one experimental field within an experiment station over there. It's more like 15,000, 20,000 acres. So they put all of this behind it, and it was successful. Now we have, here comes the Columbian Exchange. Coffee, a plant of African origin, okay? Abyssinia was brought to America, where it thrived and permitted production of plantations as well as in family-type farms, okay? Constituting very significant component of the economies of the new continent today, okay? Six of the top coffee-producing countries in the world are in the American continent. Talking about a flip. There you go. Response to the threat of coffee rust resulted in deep understanding. Now they got serious of the genetics of coffee and the pathogen. An outstanding triumph. Now this is not going to make front pages, but it did then. And I felt so proud. I really felt so proud. We had taken Amelia and matched it. Okay. Okay. Here's the district. This is Brazil. Okay. Indonesia. And this is a little clearer. This is the production that we have. This is 100-pound bags, millions of them. Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, Indonesia. Look at the number of American countries that grow it versus the rest of the world. Okay? Okay? Divina Cafeína. This is 1511. Okay? And I didn't know what this guy was talking about. But then I have a friend, which you met, Turkish, Sadr Tosun. Sadr, I never had Turkish coffee. And I was recently in his house, and I brought some of my best Cuban coffee. And I said, as far as I know, I don't know what this thing's going to do. Well, I don't know, he did his thing, and he comes out, and it blew me away. I had never had coffee like that before in my life. I mean, the aroma, the taste. I sat there, oh Lord. Anyway. So I know what this guy was talking about. Oh yeah, I do know what he was talking about. Anyway. Okay? So now we got coffee. Okay? We're on our way. One of the components. We got coffee now. Okay. But you see, I didn't show it to you. You got to have coffee, cocoa, and this here. And if you want to know what that means, there's my good friend over there, Dursley. And she will be glad to tell you, if she dares, what Gemütlichkeit means. If you do not have Gemütlichkeit, you don't have a cafe, you have a Starbucks. Okay? All right. Good feeling, nice, cool, the world, it's all around you. All of that in one word. I know no language that describes all of that with that one word. Okay. Try it, and you're going to need a lot of words to explain it. Okay. But it's the other component. This is the American component now comes in. Cocoa. Cocoa. Cacao. Cacao. Okay. I recommend this book. It's the third edition. It's a very in-depth, very scientifically done description of cocoa and chocolate and where it came from, what it is, up to date, up to today. From the beginning up to today, okay? So I recommend it. It's in your list. It's an Amazonian. The Amazon has given us incredible stuff. I mean, it's just one after the other. Coffee is one of them. Coffee is one of them. It's somewhere in there. Cacao. Cacao. And look at the name. Theobroma cacao. That was given by Linnaeus in Sweden, Columbian Exchange. Again, you see? We don't call it Theobroma. Okay. He never saw except in drawings or something. But he had coffee. So he named it Theo, God, Broma, the drinks of gods. Okay. And cacao, of course. Because, like coffee, there are many species. Okay. And you have here grandiflora, here's cacao. And these are all bushes under canopy bush, extremely finicky about growing conditions. It's not easy to have a plantation of cocoa or cacao. See, we have all of these species. Here's cacao. But you can also have this one, which will give you a chocolate type thing, but it's called mocambo. And the equation changes. The flavor is totally different and wonderful, okay? So let's start with that one, okay? This is Cupuaçu. So it's Theobroma, but this is the big flour one. So here's the flour, here's what it looks like. And the important point here is that you have the seeds, see the seeds here, and they covered up with this, okay? And that's what you like. You eat that. This, I forgot the word anyway. Paste-like material, okay? But as I said, you can also make chocolate with it. Now compare. This is cocoa. This is cupuaçu. And this is to keep your mind open of the possibilities here that we have. Again, the gene pool. But it's all American, 100%. Okay? But there are more weird things about this. There are 3 subspecies. We don't have to go into each one. Tastes Criollo, Forastero, Trinitario. This is the most productive. This is the best tasting. And this was in between. That's all we need to know. There are 3 main ones. Each one of them, great number of varieties. Okay? Now this is money. This is the Ivory Coast. Okay? Remember, this is an American species. And yet, the highest producer in the world is the Ivory Coast. Okay? And Brazil is over here. Yeah. So flip the coin. Talking about an exchange, there you have it. Okay? It's big business. Hey, this ain't quit. Okay. And this is simple, it's just to show you that it is a tropical thing. It's a tropical thing, it's restricted to the tropics, period. Cacao, the flowers and the fruits are on the trunk. You know, you think of them like apples and pears. No. These things are grown, they are off the trunk. And it produces hundreds of flowers, okay, which are pollinated, of all things, by a midge, a little bitty thing. And if you don't have the midge, you're not going to have cocoa. It's as simple as that. And in the late 1800s, when they tried to grow it in Malaysia and so on, it wouldn't produce until somebody said, you don't have the midge, man. You need to bring the midge. Well, they brought the midge, and all of a sudden, wow, we got cocoa going, okay? So you see the intricacies of all of this? Okay. This is cocoa in the wild. There you have subcanopy, very tropical. It loves the jungle. But it's not bunched up. It's one here, another one way over there, and so on. So you don't have monoculture. You have a natural way. Okay. What we call natural way. Here's some. And here's this pulp was the word that I was missing. And you have, we'll go into a little more detail now. Okay. The fermented pulp. You can make a drink out of it. I haven't had it, so I can tell you what it tastes like. Each seed, this is wow, contains 40 to 50% fat, cocoa butter. That's money. It's a very expensive one. So it really is in the chocolate part. It's the cocoa butter that is important. Combination, now this one has got caffeine. It's got theobromine, theophylline, so wow, it's got all kinds of things that makes you feel good, makes you feel very good. And it got small amounts of flavonol, natural nutrient, increases oxygen flow. You're taking chocolates, oh, I feel good. You're a victim of intoxication, okay? All right. Okay. It was from this very tiny area. Remember I said that it's very finicky about these conditions. So it's in the highlands, but not too high, cannot take cold, okay? I mean, freezing is out, okay? So it's right there. And what is interesting about it is the ice age came and so forth. It didn't affect this area. So cocoa has been growing in there since God knows when, okay? Here's the second one. Well, the Incas were there. The Incas never even knew what cocoa was. They didn't have cocoa or anything like that. They just didn't. Remember where they lived? Way high out there, no jungle, no nothing. They never saw it. Okay. The Amerindians of the area did see it and took cocoa to the Maya areas. It kind of worked with trade. Maybe the tribe moved through Central America and wound up in Mesoamerica. Okay? Here is the Maya glyph for cocoa. That means cocoa. Cocoa was linked to this area in this origin. So it moved from there all the way through Central America. And I repeat, it was the Mayas, and in fact, before the Mayas. Okay. Cultivation, use, cultural elaboration was done in Mesoamerica. Okay? We got so good in chemistry now. And you come in and you have these vessels where they would make the drink, the cocoa drink. And we've scraped the walls of it and extracted it. And then analyzed looking for theobromine. If you find theobromine, there was cocoa there. And they find it incredible. From 1900 to 900 BC, cocoa was being prepared in Mesoamerica. Okay. Not in its origin, place of origin, but down in Mesoamerica. Okay. Cocoa beans were important two ways. One was, of course, to make the chocolate and so forth. And the other one was so valuable, they used it as money, you know. And you could have so many beans, and I'll give you a piece of cloth for it, that kind of thing. But this is strictly a Mesoamerican thing. The Maya believed that cocoa, okay, cacao, was discovered by the Kukulkan, which is a feathered serpent. And the Aztecs' equivalent was Quetzalcoatl. And these gods went to a mountain, a magic mountain, and there were all kinds of goodies. They were cocoa and other nice fruits and so forth, and they brought them down so that people could use it, okay? It's a nice myth. Here's the serpent, double-headed, and this is Tlaloc, which is the god of rain, very much tied up with cocoa producing. You wanted Tlaloc to be on your side, okay? All right. So here's the human aspect. Now we have a crop that is important, but is intimately linked with their religion and their beliefs. Okay? Sufis, remember the Sufis? So now you got the cocoa equivalent over here. Okay. No monks here, no monks. Okay. The first contact, which I didn't put here, the first Europeans that saw cocoa beans was Columbus. In their fourth trip, they ran into a big Maya canoe that was loaded, and he had these grains, these things, and he took them back to Spain, and they didn't do anything with it. But that was the first bona fide, they felt it. There it was, okay? All right. But it was really in 1519, okay, at their meeting with Moctezuma, that coffee, I said coffee, cocoa, the cocoa drink was prepared, and they liked it because it foamed. It formed this foam, and you're supposed to open it and take this foam down, and it was great, extremely bitter. They were a little weird, but they liked bitter things, okay? All right. Cortez brought it to Spain. Then the beverage was actually prepared for the Spanish court by the Quechua Maya nobles that were brought in by the Dominican friars. And in fact, then Prince Philip II was the first royalty that actually had a taste of this. There's no record of what he thought about it. Okay. Within a century, culinary medical uses to France, England, elsewhere, demand for this beverage told the French and the Dutch, we can make money with this, okay? And we can do it away from the Spanish, because the Spanish were not going to allow them to settle wherever they were, okay? So, this is just to show you this. This is Doña Marina Cortez in conversation to Moctezuma. And these are the gifts that Moctezuma was giving him, and this is cocoa. Those are cocoa beans, because they were one of the most valuable things that you could offer anybody. Okay. He didn't know what was coming. Okay. You see, time and again, you read and say, oh, cocoa and chocolate and all that, that's the Aztecs. Absolutely wrong. They had nothing to do with development. They would drink it and prepare it, but the people who developed what we understand as chocolate today were the Olmecs. And right here, in this area, who then passed it on to the Mayas, and they perfected this, the way you harvested, separated, fermented, and so forth. So it is a Mayan, Olmec Mayan drink. That's a Mayan god of chocolate. Okay, she's kind of okay. All right. I don't know if you can see it, but you see a little deal. Those are cocoa pods. Okay. So we go back to the natural environment. Again, you see the seeds with the pulp around it. So you got to crack this thing and get them out, okay? And you see harvesting, how convenient. You just go down and start cutting, and the pods can be red or yellow or combinations, okay? This is in the Ivory Coast. They're having a ball there, you see, cracking up that thing, and you take them out. That's all their jobs, and put the seeds and pulp to ferment. That's the next step. You take and make it ferment. You put them out there, and then it will ferment, and the pulp will dissolve, and you got the beans, left, which you then have to dry. Here it is. Growing, harvest, fermenting and drying. Then you crack them up, okay? And separate the nibs. That's what we call the nibs, is where the coffee is, okay? I mean the cocoa is, okay? If I say coffee now, I mean cocoa, okay? Okay. All right. So you go to the market, you pack it, roasting. Oh, this is important. Then you have the temperature you roast, the speed at which you roast it, And all of that is the difference between Hershey and somebody else's, like Nestle or something. And they kept the secret about it, because at that time is when you add things to it. You see, cocoa for the Mayas, the Aztecs, was not solid. It was always liquid. They never had anything solid. That was a European invention. And it's very easy to tell of the quality, because to make solid, you just add butter, cocoa butter. The more cocoa butter you add, the finer the chocolate is. But remember, that's expensive. That's expensive. So people cheat and add other things besides cocoa butter. So the rule is, this is a special chocolate. You say, how much butter? How much cocoa butter in? You say 80%. Wow, that's good. Get ready, because it's going to hit your pocket, okay? And this, I'll go quickly here. You see that? That. Then fermentation. You dry, you roast. All of this, as it goes, adds or changes the flavor, usually adds compounds that we humans love, okay? There's a reaction of sugars, okay, with amino acids. It's called the Monroe reaction. And it produces these phenolics, which we love that, and it gives us our aroma. Okay, go quick this. So here we go. They now depulped, they're drying, tourists taking pictures, okay? This is part of the scene. Okay. Or you can get like this. You know, tourists don't go there, okay? It takes several days to dry it. After you do that, roast it. This is important. The conditions of roasting, very, very important. And then you do it Maya style and go and grind them up. And as you grind them up, it becomes kind of liquid, you know, it liquefies a little bit, okay? Or you can do this. Yeah. And it's called conching. Not only do you have to do this, but to do this like that. And the more you do all that when you're preparing it, the finer the quality of the chocolate. So you see how complicated it is, just from conditions of growth to how you handle this, okay? It's all full of secrets, okay? And you go like that, and you make that, okay? And here these guys, they're having fun, okay? But we're gonna go to Madrid now. You see, we went to Vienna, coffee. Now we're gonna go to Madrid, okay? This is the coat of arms of Madrid. It's the bear eating the strawberry fruit, the bush of the strawberry bush, okay? That's the symbol. And it's called a madroño, okay? And here it is, yeah, okay? Why do I show you this? Because it's right where this is, chocolateria. And if you go to Madrid, just like you go to the Sacher place in Vienna, this is where you have to go to have a good cup of chocolate, real chocolate, and churros, okay? All is well, but chocolate, Spanish style, okay? All right. And we're back to this Gemütlichkeit thing, okay? So now we have cocoa, we have coffee, we have this, we're in the right place, and you can have it. And if you want to do it, here's the recipe. And the very important details, okay? My wife can tell you about that, okay? Because she reminded me, she said, it has to be apricot. Remember apricot marmalade. Remember that, okay? All right, so, okay. Anyway, there it is. Let's see how much time I got. Okay. In going continuous, this goes quickly. We have all of these, we have all of that, okay? And I just put it, that's tea. You all know tea. Cat, I never had it, you probably never had. They munch that thing in Yemen and Somalia and so on. They munch that thing. I don't know if you get a charge out of it. But if you want to have rotten teeth, you'll do betel nuts and opium. And my point is, some things like coffee and cocoa made it a true Columbian exchange. Others didn't. You know, tea did, yeah, but others didn't. They were more limited for cultural reasons, growth conditions, God knows, you know. And of course, marijuana, okay. That's an import, okay. No, it is not American. This came from the other side, okay? And this is a sad thing. The statistics, 2014, estimate illegal drug users, okay? So I told you there are some things, the overwhelming have been positive, but there are some negative things, okay? Coca. You got high mountain coca, but you also have jungle coca, and they produce cocaine, just the same one as the other. And I need not tell you that that has become a big, big problem. This is what I was doing in Cusco, you see, assessing the quality of the coca leaves, which is used just as a tea to help you if you have soroche. Oops. Okay. Then you got yerba mate. This is one that is important in Brazil, southern Brazil, Argentina, as well, but never made it out of there. Okay. Didn't come across. So some things didn't succeed. And our own Jopon. Who doesn't know about Jopon? Have you had Jopon? I've made it. It's good. Okay. But that is used to call Ilex vomitoria, the black vomit. Okay. Cherokees and so forth. Okay. That didn't make it. This one did, big time. Tobacco. I like the book because you see this angel thing, he's passing that to Europe, passing it to Europe, okay, tobacco. And I used to smoke these. This is Cuba. Yeah. So here's something American, tobacco. The techniques for manufacturing of good cigars, that came from the Canary Islands, not from here. The Amerindians never knew how to make a cigar. Okay.
Rod, I have a question about tobacco. I've grown it in our crop garden here, but what does the native plant look like? That was
The what?
probably the native plant. Where is it grown and what does it look like? I have never, all I've seen is cultivated tobacco, but I've never seen what the native plant looks like.
It comes from the Caribbean, in Cuba, and you can find it rarely now. It's just a little bushy thing. The leaves are not very impressive, so.
Well, it wasn't a native of North America, then it was the Caribbean.
No, it was native of Cuba,
Okay.
and the other Caribbean islands too. Okay. Okay. You got a summary. The discovery affected, I think, demonstrated to you, and we just with cocoa and coffee, that it has affected us very much. The Columbia redefined trade, culture, exchange, ideology, Sufis, Dominican friars. I could tell you about Jesuits, missionaries, and so forth. They got involved. Oops. number of crops and animal species exchange. See? And we're only talking about beverages now. We'll deal with other things in the next sections, okay? Beverages and stimulants. There. Okay? And you have a list of what is involved. And it's a very limited list. You can add to it. But anyway, who's from Louisiana here? Nobody from Louisiana? Carol? No. Can you tell me what lagniappe is? Lagniappe is, lagniappe is when you buy something from a merchant, he'll give you a little gift, you know, and that's lagniappe, okay? Okay, there's mine. Okay, you like that? How about this one? You heard of the fierce Polish lancer, the Uhlans. There you have them, they're having fun, okay? Anyway, thank you.